and we'll say welcome. Welcome, everybody. So this is Stats 10. This is summer session, and so welcome. Excited to be here. And so I just want to kind of start off and just say I hope you guys are doing well. I wrote this wall of text, but effectively, we are in the middle of a pandemic still. There's a lot of unrest. There's racial injustice and protests and just a lot of difficulty. So I hope when we start kind of this summer academic quarter, I just want to say that I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are healthy. I hope your family members are all safe and healthy. I recognize that not everyone's in a good place. I hope you guys are, but I recognize that that might not be the case for everyone. Some of you guys might have family members who are sick, or maybe you're in financially difficult places with kind of record unemployment numbers, things of that nature. Maybe you're still concerned about, or maybe not still, but you have concern, especially about your elderly loved ones, such as your grandparents, even just things that are happening kind of in the political climate, maybe presents a challenge for you as well. And so to all of that, I just want to say you're not alone. We're struggling in this together as a community, and it's weighing on me. I imagine it's weighing on a lot of you as well. But I do want to say that we will get through this. I don't know when it's going to be over, but it will be over at some point. It is unfortunate that our fall quarter for most of us is going to be nearly entirely online, and nobody really wanted that, but these are the necessary steps that we have to take to kind of keep everyone safe. But yeah, it does mean that kind of the not fun part of all of this is going to last for a while, and but we do look forward to ending things, returning to some sense of normalcy where we can see one another's faces in person and interact, and so we will get through this. Let's see. All right, so before we get started on, I do want to just kind of walk us through a couple of features on Zoom. For some of you, this might actually be your very first class at UCLA, and I'm honored to be your teacher. And others of you, this is, you're going into your fourth year or whatever it might be, and you had all of, Zoom last quarter and whatnot. So anyway, the kind of, the big buttons are mute microphone and stop video. If you want to turn off your video, your webcam, or if you want to mute yourself, actually, I prefer you guys to stay muted the whole time. Those buttons are there. But if you click the participants button, there should be a button for participants that will pop up. And inside the participants button, you'll see a few buttons such as yes, no, go slower, go faster. And under more, there's like a thumbs up, thumbs down, and a coffee mug. Okay, go ahead and try clicking the yes button in the participants panel. Okay, all right. And so there's 100 of you here, and looks like we're counting 60, 70 of you found it. Let's keep going. I don't know, maybe it's too much to ask for 100%, but Okay, we're close to 80. All right. Some of you, somebody clicked go faster. um, but all right. So yeah, go ahead and click yes, the yes button, the green yes button, and this is a good way to get for me to get feedback just along the way as we probably we won't need to use it for a little while, but in the beginning, as long as if I present a topic and I just kind of want to make sure everyone's following along, um, I'll ask you to click the yes button or the no button or whatever. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and clear that out. There's also a chat. If you want to say hello in the chat, go ahead and do that. And all right. Okay. So we got some people saying hi, hi, hello, hey, hey, hey. It's that's great. So all right. And I don't plan on doing breakout rooms or anything. But well, I guess so. I'll set up the campus wire, and if you guys want to form study groups and things like that, we'll set that up accordingly here. Okay. Well, great. At least we've got some Zoom going on, and we'll do that. All right. Let's go over the syllabus. Okay. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Miles Chen, and I'll be your teacher. Okay. This is my email address, mileschen@stat.ucla.edu. Sometimes it takes me a while to respond to your emails. Oh, okay. It looks like Carla has set up a group me. Okay. So thank you, Carla, for setting that up, and you guys can join that. You know, and of course I'm expecting you guys to use the group me for honest purposes and not to create some kind of subterfuge of dishonesty or something there. But use that. I'll also set up a campus wire, and you guys can join that as well. Okay. As far as you know, office hours, I'll hold them on Fridays from 11 a.m. to noon, and that's what we'll have. And when you write your emails, my request is that you address it. I don't like emails that just start off with hi or hello. So you can call me Miles, you can call me Professor Chen or Dr. Chen. Any of these things are fine, but just my request in general, and this is not just for this class, but just in general in life, if you're going to send an email, you should put in the person's name. And if you're not quite sure how to call the person, like then go as formal as you think as might be appropriate, right? So so that's that. This is silly, but my first name is Miles, and I prefer to be called Miles rather than my last name Chen. If you're gonna call me, use my last name. Just bring it in with some kind of title there. All right, so let's talk about grading. So we've got these lecture viewing quizzes, okay, and I'll talk about what those are. But that's going to be worth 18% of your grade. That's almost a fifth of your grade. It's intended to weigh a lot, but also intended to be a very easy way to get points. And I'll talk about what that is, okay? We're also going to have weekly quizzes. These are Gradescope quizzes. And I'll talk about those later when it's time. There's going to be lab assignments, and those will probably represent a good amount of time invested. There's homework, and then we'll also have a midterm and final exam worth 25% each, okay? This is my first time teaching this class online. And so this is what I was trying, I was sitting and thinking about how this should be, and this is what I've decided upon. There's a possibility that I'll make some tweaks to this. So we'll see how this goes, okay? All right, and then as far as grading schemes go, I use a straight scale. I don't curve. So this is the plan. I don't believe that students should be graded based on their performance relative to peers, that everyone should be kind of graded kind of on their own merits versus the material covered. And so I see it as my responsibility to cover the material thoroughly. And if that means a whole bunch of you get A's, then that's totally fine. The only grade that is graded relative to peers is the A+, and I reserve that to just the top 5% of students. But everything else will be straight scale. Now, if for some reason I write a test that is unfair, where a whole bunch of people do poorly, then I might make an adjustment to the exam itself, where I'll either like remove a question that didn't work out, or I'll just add some points back to the exam. So that could happen, but that's not going to be kind of a curving, which is based on how you do relative to your peers, which I don't like that idea, because that kind of discourages cooperation among students and things like that. Okay, we're gonna have 2 exams, a midterm and a final, and the dates of those exams are Friday, week 3 Friday and week 6 Friday, okay? So please note that on your calendar. Our classes are scheduled for Mondays and Wednesdays, and but for these 2 weeks, for these 2 days, uh-oh, I think I messed up on the date here. It should be July 10th, sorry. This should be July 10th, that's a typo, okay? July 10th and July 31. Fix this. This is important. Okay. July 10th and July 31 will be Fridays. Okay, and so please make sure you are available. I know some of well, you guys are here in here, but not everybody logged in today, and so or are logged in right now, and so the exams will be offered at 10 a.m. and at 10 p.m. And you can choose which one is more convenient for you between those 2 times. One of them should work out. The exams are going to be 2 hours, so the 10 p.m. goes from 10 p.m. to midnight California time, which is probably not the best for everybody, but I mean, some of you guys stay up late, so it could work out. But if if you're logging in from the other side of the world, this would represent something like 2 o'clock for you or something. And by putting them on Fridays, this allows me to hold these optional review sessions on Wednesday. One complaint is that the course feels like it moves very quickly, and that is true. There's nothing I can really do about that, because we're fitting an entire quarter's worth of stuff in 6 weeks. But I think holding a review session on the Wednesday before the exam will be helpful in allowing you to take some time to digest the content. So that's what we've got going on. Okay, so please mark these dates on the calendar. If you already know that you're not available, send me a message and we will work something out. Okay, so we'll figure this out here. Okay. Okay, you guys are here on Zoom, and a lot of you have turned your cameras on, which I appreciate. And you guys learned about all of this stuff. All right, just common sense etiquette. If something is distracting, if something distracting is happening in your window, just turn off your camera, okay? And that's fine. Okay, and of course you can get a drink, you can go to the bathroom, things like that. No problem. Okay, let me I need to log into CCLE up here. Sorry, give me a second. I'm trying to get it on my phone. Hang on a second. Okay, so the lecture viewing quizzes. Okay, so your final grade, lecture viewing quizzes will contribute to 18%, which is quite a bit, okay? And so we're gonna have like 10 of these things, okay? So if you miss, and one of them is being dropped, okay? So if you miss one, that's okay. But more than that, you know, these things will add up, okay? And the reason why I'm doing this is to help students stay on track, okay? I know what it's like to do an online class. I've taken online classes, and especially if the videos are recorded, there's a temptation to not attend the lecture live. There's also and for whatever reason, watching a lecture once it's been recorded and not when it's live just feels so much harder. It feels like it takes twice as long to get through the material because something distracting is going on, you pause it and things like that. And so anyway, the point of the lecture viewing quizzes is just to kind of motivate you to either come to lecture live or make sure that you watch the video, okay? And they are intended to be a very easy way to earn points as long as you come to lecture, okay? And so basically on CCLE, you'll see it right here under week 1. There's the week 1 Monday lecture viewing quiz, and don't open it now, but basically you have a window, which is basically today and tomorrow, to take the quiz, and it's going to be three multiple choice questions, okay? And I will give the answer to these multiple choice questions in lecture, but I'm only going to give it audibly, okay? So I'm going to speak it out loud, and so you do have to kind of be listening, but they will not be present in the notes. So you can't just go through the notes, quickly skim through them, and get the answer, okay? So so the first question, and I'm going to kind of drop the answers throughout the lecture. So the first question, the answer is A as in apple. A as in apple will be the answer to today's first question. So don't, I would, write that down on a little piece of paper, okay? And I'll give you the answers to questions 2 and questions 3 later on. And if I forget to do that, don't hesitate to remind me to do that. But the first question will be A as in apple, okay? And again, they are open basically on the day of the lecture and the day after, or I mean, you'll see the deadlines for these. So so please keep up. Please don't forget to do them. I don't have so that's how it's going to work, okay? Now, if something happens and you have a legitimate reason for not being able to attend lecture or view the lecture for a given period of time or something, send me an email. I am able to grant extensions to the quiz, but I'd rather do this on a fairly rare basis. So so please do your best to keep up with the lectures there. Okay. So we'll have Gradescope quizzes, and these are going to be kind of traditional quizzes, you know, where you do them with a pen and paper. And so what's going to happen is, you know, these quizzes are open book and open note, but you'll click the link that takes you to Gradescope. You might have to create a Gradescope account for your very first one, and when you do that and you open the quiz, you'll download the file. Okay, and you can either choose to print out that file and write on the exam, or you can write on a blank sheet of paper, or if you've got an iPad with a pencil, you can choose to answer directly on the PDF. Okay, and then on Gradescope, what you're going to do is you're going to kind of take pictures of the exam, and you'll upload them back up. You know what I'll do for this first week? We'll have the we'll have the actual Gradescope quiz, but then I'll put in I will add I will do a Gradescope practice. So let me do this. I'll do a Gradescope practice. Okay, and okay, and then I'll fill in the rest. So don't. Oh shoot. Okay, I'll have to configure this later. But I'll add a Gradescope practice quiz. Okay, and that way you'll just get familiar with the idea of logging into Gradescope, downloading the paper, filling it out, and then uploading it back. Okay, so to upload it back, I'm assuming everybody's got a phone with a camera or a scanner or something, and basically you'll just take pictures of your exam and then and convert it into a PDF and upload it. Okay, and there's all sorts of apps. You can just go on the App Store or Google Play and search, you know, PDF scanner. And you know, if you've got an Android phone, you can just use Google Drive. There's Cam Scanner. There, I think on iPhones, there's the Notes app can do this, and so you'll do the exam. It's a quiz, and then you'll take pictures of your work and upload it to Gradescope. There's 4 quizzes. They're worth a total of 3% each, so a total of 12% of your final grade. These are intended to be low stakes. Okay, so if you mess up a quiz, it's not a huge deal, right? Like if you get a 50% on the quiz, okay, which, you know, I think most people would consider that to be a bad grade. Even if you get a 50% on the quiz, it affects your final grade by, you know, 1.5%. Okay, so don't stress too much about them. These are intended to be low stakes opportunities that you know, is a way for me to kind of give you questions that might appear on the midterm or might appear on the final in a less threatening form. Okay, and then so when it comes to studying for the midterm and studying for the final, you know, you would have seen, you know, some of these question types before. Okay. We've got lab assignments. Okay, lab assignments will be done using software called RStudio, which I'm using right here, and if it's a little bit of coding, it's a little bit of writing some code and whatnot, and if it's your first time ever doing it, it can feel intimidating. Labs will be covered in your discussion section with your TAs. And you guys truly have the best TAs, okay? Chowling and Steven, these are, they're really, really great TAs. So, so they will help you through the lab assignments. And this first lab is probably the most intimidating one just because it's going to be your first time ever interacting with the language. Or I don't know. Some of you might have already interacted with the R, and then this lab will be super easy. But I imagine for the vast majority of you, you've never dealt with R before, R Studio, and so so it can feel intimidating in that sense. But your TAs will guide you through it. You're in really good hands, so I'm not worried about it. And that's what we have. Okay. Anyway, the deadlines for the labs are in California time. I generally make them do 6 p.m. California time, and so keep in mind wherever that is, whatever time that is, you know, based on where you are. If you're on the East Coast or if you're in Asia or wherever that might be. Okay. If something happens, you need an extension, just include some documentation. Just upload that directly with the lab. There's no need. Actually, please don't email me your paperwork, okay? Because I'm not the one who grades the labs, and it's too hard for me to keep track of all 140 students and things like that. So you know, if you're not sure if a reason counts, in general, if you got a reason, I'll approve your extension, okay? You know, you can email me, I can email you back and just say, yep, that counts as a reason to get an extension, and you can just include a PDF printout of that email, and you know, you'll upload it right alongside the lab, okay? So you'll CCLE, you can upload multiple files, so you'll upload the PDF of your lab report along with, you know, the PDF requesting the extension, whether it be a doctor note or whatever it might be, and that way the person who's doing the grading will see the note when they're doing the grading and not deduct points for it being submitted late. Okay. I don't know if you guys have any questions on that. I'm having trouble here for a second. This is better. Oh, sorry. Question: how much time are we given for the quizzes? Okay, so going back to the Gradescope quizzes, you'll be given an hour. Okay, some of you have testing accommodations, and I can enter those so that Gradescope will grant you extra time as well. But in general, you'll be given an hour, which should be enough time for the most part, and that hour includes the time required to scan and upload the document. Okay, so again, for this first week, I'll have a practice that will count 0% towards your grade, but we'll give you an opportunity to kind of practice the downloading and the uploading of the quiz. So so we've got that. Okay, that's the lab assignments and homework. Okay, so oh, I forgot to talk. This is the textbook that we're using. This one's Essential Statistics. There's another textbook that's Introductory Statistics, which is basically the exact same book. Essential Statistics just covers chapters 1 through 10, and the Introductory Statistics book has chapters like 1 through 13 or something. They are both described in the syllabus. You only need one or the other, okay? In our class, we're going to cover chapters 1 through 9, so so either of those textbooks will work. There's no need to buy both. There's no need to buy the online access, okay? I think I sent out an email about this like a week ago or so, okay? So if you have any questions about the textbook, you can ask me. But anyway, I'm going to be assigning problems from the textbook for homework, okay? And but here's the thing: I'm not going to collect the homework. I'm not going to be grading the homework, okay? And at the end, everyone gets full credit for the homework portion of their grade. So Homework counts for 10% of your grade. I'm basically giving everyone 10% for free, okay? So, you know, as far as grading goes, if you come to lecture and you answer your lecture viewing quizzes and you do your homework, that's basically 28% points free, okay? So I feel that's fairly generous, okay? And even though I'm not grading them, and even though I'm not collecting them or looking at them, please do your homework, okay? The homework is intended as a way to kind of reinforce the stuff I've covered to help you with your learning. You can think of it as like working out or going to the gym or something like that. You know, just like anything else in life, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out. And so if you only attend lecture and you're sitting very passively, not actually trying to do the homework, you're not going to get as much out of it, right? You know, you can go to the gym and hire a personal trainer and meet up with your personal trainer once a week or something. But if you don't go to the gym on your own in between your weekly meetings, you're not going to be making as much progress. And same thing with this class. We meet twice a week, but if you're not doing work outside of class, you're not going to be making as much progress. So so please do your homework, okay? And then and as far as office hours, you know, come by. You can, if you got questions about any of the material, I'm very happy to explain. Even if you don't have questions about the material, you can come to office hours and we can talk about whatever. That's fine. I'm happy to do that. The only office hour visits that I'm not a super fan of is like when I get into arguments with students about points, about I don't know, grades and stuff. You know, if we make a mistake, I'm happy to fix a mistake. I'm happy to fix mistakes. But if we did not make a mistake and you just feel like we graded something harshly, like we took off 10 points on a mistake, and you feel like that, you know, sometimes I get into arguments. These are my least favorite things. I have to try to defend why the mistake was certain number of points. But anyway, that's that. Okay. Yes, question. Go ahead and
I sent you a personal chat question. If you could look into it.
Yeah, I will respond to. I saw your question in the private chat. I didn't want to address it publicly here, so so I will answer that. Okay.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other questions regarding course policies? I've posted the syllabus. I emailed that out. The course calendar, I think, will help you stay on track as far as when everything is due. So please pay attention to that and keep up with all of that. Okay. So so today we've got the first lecture and discussion, which will actually be lab 1 instructions. Lab 1 instructions will probably spill over onto Wednesday and things like that. The first viewing quiz is due tomorrow. After today's lecture, you might as well take it as soon as you have all 3 multiple choice questions. Okay, and then your first Gradescope quiz will be due on Friday. When are the weekly quizzes posted? So I will make them available on starting Wednesday after the second lecture. So I imagine students will be taking the quiz probably either on Thursday or Friday. If you feel like you got everything down as soon as you finish watching the lecture on Wednesday, you can attempt it. But I think probably best will be after Wednesday's lecture. You try out a few homework problems, kind of make sure you got the ideas down, and then you'll take the quiz, you know, on your own time on either Thursday or Friday. So they will be posted. How many questions are on each quiz? It's going to vary from quiz to quiz, but it's basically going to be 1 sheet of paper front and back. So it's going to be basically 2 pages. okay, or one sheet front and back, and you'll have effectively an hour, I guess maybe 55 minutes or so, because it probably takes 5 to 10 minutes to download and upload. So so that's how it'll work. Maybe this first week, but this first week I will put a practice thing that you can try the downloading and uploading process first. And then I can probably extend the quiz one due date to, let's say, Saturday or something like that. Okay. Oh, is the quiz entirely on Gradescope, or is that where we show our work? Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna click the link to Gradescope, and then you'll, once you're on Gradescope, you can download the file, and well, basically once you get into Gradescope, your timer starts. Okay, you get 1 hour, and your 1 hour timer will start, and then you'll click to download the file, and from there you can either start answering on a blank sheet of paper, or you can print it out and you can answer on the printed thing, or if you've got an iPad, you can download it onto your iPad and answer directly on the iPad if you've got a pencil or something like that. Not everyone has an iPad with a pencil, so I only expect that to be a handful of you. I imagine most of you will kind of download and either print it out and answer on a printed thing, or you'll download the quiz and then you'll have a separate blank sheet of paper and you'll just clearly number things, okay? Definitely do not spread the quiz, okay? You should not share the quiz, okay? That's a violation of academic integrity and the course policies. It will say clearly on every page, sharing any part of this quiz is a violation of course policies and things like that. So definitely do not share or spread the quiz. Don't post it, okay? I do like periodically check the internet, check Chegg and Course Hero, and there's websites where stuff get posted, and I got to say, don't support those websites, okay? I know sometimes students will feel desperate and they feel like they need to do something to try to get ahead, like get their grade better or something. But these websites are predatory. They take advantage of a student's stress and panic, and they charge exorbitant fees to basically encourage students to act unethically, right? It's like, I don't know, and then they try to entice you by saying like, hey, if you don't want to pay $40 for a month of access, you can try uploading a bunch of material from your class, and then they kind of build up their catalog of material that way. And the university takes it seriously, right? And so if you and to kind of cover their own tracks, Chegg says, we'll cooperate with any university investigation. So basically, they take your money, and then as soon as the university puts any pressure on them, they hand over your information. They say, oh yeah, it was this student. This student was cheating, okay? And basically, they just they've taken your money, and now you're in trouble with the university. So don't. I'm going to trash talk Chegg and Course Hero because I strongly oppose these sites that I think prey on student anxieties and fears. Okay, my job and the TA's jobs. Our job is to present the material in a way that's understandable, and if you are struggling with it, please don't hesitate to come to office hours and ask for help. Okay. So yeah, please don't spread the quizzes. Okay, let's see. Is the quiz entirely on Gradescope, or is that where you show your work? So yeah, what's going to happen is you go on Gradescope, you're going to download the quiz, you're going to answer the quiz. You're either on a blank sheet of paper and you put down show your work and stuff there, or you fill out the quiz and whatnot, and then you'll scan it and upload that back to Gradescope. again, I'll put a practice version that you can try out. So give me a few minutes after lecture. I'll complete the practice version where you can kind of just see what it's like, and that will count 0% for your grade. Maybe I'll make it like an extra credit thing. I think there's a way to do it, set it up, but we'll do it like that. Any other questions? Okay, that's that. As far as the lecture viewing quizzes, please treat them as a quiz as well, right? So if you share answers to a quiz or an exam, that would be considered cheating. I don't know if there's a way for me to really hunt you down, but please maintain academic integrity here, and don't share the lecture viewing quizzes, right? I know in like past classes when I used like clickers and things like that, where we had some interactivity, students would bring in like clickers of their friends and would have like a hand bundle of like 4 clickers, and they would click the buttons for everybody and things like that. You're not doing your friends any favor by doing that. Okay, you're sure, you might help them get the points, get the points in the class, but the goal of the course. The goal of the course is not to get points, okay? The goal of the course is not to get points. The goal of the course is to help you learn, okay? I want you guys to learn. And so, it would be kind of like, going to the gym with a friend and you guys, I don't know, maybe you're lifting weights or something. And if you're lifting weights, the goal of lifting weights is not that the weights get lifted, but that you do the work so that you get tired after lifting weights, and you wear out your muscles so that later on you get stronger, right? Basically, giving somebody the viewing quiz answers, or doing the clicker questions for someone else. Basically, you're going to the gym with your friend, and then you're saying, "Oh, you're struggling." Instead of like spotting your friend when they're lifting weights, you're just saying like, "Oh, you're struggling, let me lift it for you." Okay, oh, look at that, I'm lifting the weights are getting lifted. You're not helping your friend out, okay? That's not going to help your friend learn, and vice versa. If you have somebody else do the hard work for you, you're not doing yourself any favors. The goal is not to get points, but the goal is to learn. Okay, when are my office hours? My office hours are going to be on Fridays at 11 a.m. Okay, and they'll be from 11 a.m. to noon. If you need more time, if you need to schedule an appointment, send me a message, and we can try to set up an appointment. Okay, are you allowed to attend a different discussion section than the one we are enrolled in? I would say talk to your TA. Okay, ask them about their policies regarding that. Okay, I gave my TAs permission to kind of combine their 2 sections. So there's 4 sections. You guys have been divided up into 4 sections, and each TA has been assigned 2 of them. And in the past, what has often happened is, one discussion section was not enough time to cover everything they wanted. And so, I gave them permission to kind of combine it. And so does it mean that it's going to be a 2-hour discussion? It might be up to 2 hours. I don't think it's going to be a full 2 hours. Okay, probably maybe like 1 hour and 10 minutes or something. Okay, and again, these sessions are intended to be helpful, right? When you're working through the lab, okay, you're going to have to work through the lab anyway, and it's probably going to take you a few hours to work through the lab. You might as well work through the lab with the assistance of your TA. And so, so rather than having the TA repeat themselves, do a 50-minute section and then another 50-minute section repeating themselves, I said just throw everybody together, all, you know, both of them, all 70 to 80 students of you into one section, and then go up to 2 hours if you need to. Now, I don't think it's going to go the full 2 hours, okay? And they will also record it and post all of that material. And of course, just like anything else, you can come and go as you please, right? They're not going to be taking attendance. The only thing where I'm kind of requiring you to show up is the lecture itself, where I present a viewing quiz and things like that. There's not going to be a viewing quiz for the TA sections, but I promise you, your TAs are really good, and the stuff that they cover will be helpful. Okay, you know, if you feel like you can do all the labs on your own time and you don't need any outside help, yeah, you can skip section. Okay, but I think a lot of you will find the help that they offer for the labs to be useful, and so I think you will want to attend those sections, and then they'll also work through homework problems, and I think that will also be helpful, right? All right, so yeah, the TA section says it goes, so, you know, for example, you might have a section combined goes from 3 to 5 p.m. And if you've got class from 3 to 4, and if you join from 4 to 5, then they might not be doing much at all in that last hour. That's possible, right? So if your discussion goes, so in this class you've got 3 to 5, probably the bulk of the material will be covered in that first hour from 3 o'clock. Okay. All right. So is the viewing quiz for Monday due before Tuesday 11:59? Yes. The viewing quiz for Monday is due before Tuesday 11:59. It should probably take you less than 1 minute to answer the quiz, because it's just 3 multiple choice questions. You're just going to go click, 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 and then click submit. Okay. There's nothing. There's no thinking involved with the viewing quiz. Okay. You just take. You know, it's just the letters. You know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions we've got? All right. So I guess I'll give you your second viewing quiz answer. Your second viewing quiz answer is D as in dog. D as in dog will be the second answer to the viewing quiz. Okay. So there's 3 questions, and the second one is D as in dog. Okay, so let's begin our first bit of content, Stats 10, and I'm excited. All right, okay, so if you'll forgive me, I just want to say I love this class. I love statistics. When I took introductory statistics as an undergraduate student, which is a long time ago now, you know, it literally changed my life. In undergrad, I was an engineering major. I completed my degree in industrial engineering, got my bachelor's degree in industrial engineering. But along my journey in studying engineering, I had to take a statistics course, okay? And I took my first stats class, and I fell in love with the subject. I went to a tiny university in Michigan called Kettering, and after that, I took all the stats classes that were offered. I think there were like maybe 3 or 4 of them. So I took every single one. Loved the subject. I worked for a couple years as an engineer, but I decided to come back to graduate school to study statistics. Okay, and if I didn't take that introductory statistics class, that wouldn't have happened, and I wouldn't be here teaching statistics because I would have never come. You know. So anyway, I came to grad school. I studied statistics. As a graduate student, I TA'd, and I fell in love with teaching, and I said, this is what I want to do as a career. And so now I have my dream job of teaching statistics, and I couldn't be happier. It's absolutely the best. I do miss seeing students in person, but I can't complain. You know, I can teach from home, still do what I love to do. So anyway, I recognize not everyone is going to love the subject the way I do, okay? But I hope at the end of the course you'll gain an appreciation for it. Not everyone's going to become a stats major. Some of you might be or might already be stats majors, but you know, if you're not sure what you want to study, if you enjoy math and enjoy coding, statistics could be a good option for you. You know, if you've always like kind of hated math and you hate the idea of programming or anything like that, you know, this is probably not going to be your favorite subject, but I hope you can at least gain an appreciation for it. You know, what always hurts my feelings a little bit is, you know, sometimes you go to these social events and you talk to people, and then, you know, they ask, what do you do? And I say, oh, I teach statistics. And sometimes people will say, ugh, I hated statistics, or like, oh, I hated that class in college. That always hurts my feelings a little bit, because can you imagine any other job where it's like, oh, what do you do? And somebody goes, ugh. That's a little rude, right? But for whatever reason, people will say that sometimes. Anyway, I hope if you ever encounter somebody and they say, I teach statistics, I hope you say, oh man, I loved my stats class. That's like my dream. I have these little like daydreams and fantasies that my students go off about telling people how they love statistics. But, you know, so maybe that will have, thank you, Akshay, for saying we will love statistics, and thank you, Tony, for saying that. But so anyway, that's my hope. But yeah, okay. This is but why would I love statistics, right? So if, you know, just because somebody says I love statistics doesn't mean you have to, right? Someone says like I love this silly subject, right? And they get super into it. They don't, you know, doesn't mean you have to. But anyway, so what's this class all about? And so I would say this is the most important slide of the entire course. This one, you know, lecture 1-1, slide 18. This is what I want you to walk away from this class with, right? We're going to cover like calculations. You're going to find out how to do a t-test and use the table and find a p-value. Like you got to learn how to do that for the exams, like the final exam. You got to have to learn that. But let's be honest, right? 10 years down the road, are you going to remember all of those details? Probably not, okay? You know, unless you become a stats teacher, which maybe a couple of you might, but you know, most of you probably will not, and a lot of you might forget those little details. I'm okay with that, all right? You know, you would have learned it, and something, you know, there was some work done there, but if you forget some of those details, I'm okay with that, right? But these are the things that I want you to like learn, and 10 years down the road, if you get in a conversation about statistics, these are the kind of the big ideas that I want you to remember, okay? And the whole idea, this is the most important thing, that basically as statistics is that the whole subject of statistics is that we can make conclusions from data, right? We can make conclusions from observed data. And that's basically what the subject of statistics is all about. We are gathering data and we want to make conclusions from it, okay? All right, the next big idea is that when we make conclusions from the data, okay, we are making conclusions about large populations that we cannot directly observe. And so the idea is there's something called a population, and I'll get into this in a couple of slides here. But the population is this big entity, and we're not able to observe it directly, because there's too many people. There's too many people to interview, or there's people that we've got to hunt down and track down, and we can't find them. We can't observe everybody in the population directly, okay? So instead, we look at a sample, and even though we're only looking at a small subset, like we've interviewed only like 500 people, we're able to make conclusions about, you know, the million other people that we did not interview, okay? And that's really the power of statistics, is that we are able to make conclusions from our data. And even though we're only looking at a small sample of data, we're able to make conclusions about the general population, the general public, and things like that. The other key idea is that in your data, when you're looking at the 500 people you've selected, or however many people you've selected, you might observe an association, okay? There might be an association between variables in our data, okay? And you might say, like, in your data, you might find that, you know, people who are voted this way are also more likely to, you know, subscribe to this ideology or something like that, right? You might find an association in the data, and that could mean, okay, emphasis on could, okay, the association in the data could mean that there's also a similar association in the general public, in the population that we didn't directly observe, okay? On the other hand, that association that you see in the data could also just be a random fluke of the data itself, right? So when we gathered these 500 people, it could just be a random fluke. And this class is gonna help us kind of, point number 4 is that in our class, we're gonna study probability, which teaches us about randomness. And that's gonna help us decide whether, you know, when we observe something happening in our data, is that a random fluke? We're gonna have to learn about randomness to decide, is it a random fluke, or is it actually an indication that something is going on in the population, right? And then, so we are going to learn the statistical tools like the confidence interval, the z-test, the t-test, and these are procedures that you know, that you're going to have to learn for the final exam and things like that. And those things will produce numeric values, a p-value or an interval or something like that. That's going to help us make conclusions, okay? And so we will cover that, all right? If you forget about these details, 10 years down the road, you forget about these details, I can sleep and still find peace. But if you go away, you know, 10 years down the road, and you decide, you know, if you ignore this thing, right, that we're not going to make conclusions from the data, right? If you say, like, I'm going to ignore, you know, I don't care what your data says, this is my gut feeling and I'm going with it, then I'd be like, I'm going to shake my head, right? This is there's a little bit, you know, it always, I used to read the news obsessively, and I realized, like, just to kind of keep myself sane and protect my mental health, like, I limit myself to how much news I read in a day. Because sometimes, you know, I find it upsetting when I read stories about people who almost take pride in their choice to ignore data. You know, especially like with this, like with the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, you know, I feel like there's a certain segment of the population that is completely ignoring the numbers and data that are coming out. And they say, you know, this is what I believe, and because I believe this, you know, we're going forward with it. And I always find that a little bit upsetting, right? So the idea is, I want you to be able to trust, you know, conclusions made from data a little bit more, are more reliable than conclusions that we make based on, you know, gut feeling and things like that. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for. Yes, I do love podcasts and things like that. So yeah. I mean, at heart, I'm an optimist, and so you know, I still read the news, and but I always just feel like it's a little bit disheartening to see things like that. So 10 years down the road, you forget the details of how to do a z-test and t-test. I'm okay with that, right? But I want you to be able to say, yeah, we can trust data. We can make conclusions based off of the data, and that's going to be a little bit more reliable than just trusting, you know, tradition and gut instinct and things like that. Okay, and this is kind of the link and the logic that goes behind it. So I consider this kind of the most important slide of the entire course, the big picture idea here, and then and we'll work through this. All right. So as you know, before we really get into this, my goal is to cover chapters 1 through 9 in our textbook, which is quite a bit. We've got 6 weeks to do that, and the course is going to feel fast-paced. A normal quarter at UCLA is 10 weeks plus finals, so effectively 11 weeks. And you know, we're trying to cover about the same amount of material in a span that's a little bit, it's around half the amount of time, okay? And if you've been at UCLA, you know, you're familiar with all of the quarter system memes and how everything just feels like it's just tests after tests and things are moving too quickly. And I don't know if you've done a summer session course before, but it's like, you know, all of the memes, but amped up a little bit, okay? It's going to feel very fast-paced, okay? We've got 2 lectures each week. Every lecture builds on the previous lecture, so please don't skip a lecture, okay? If you skip a lecture and you go to the next lecture, you're going to feel confused because you're going to have missed, you know, the equivalent of like an entire week's of material. So don't do that, right? The lecture viewing quizzes, those are there. They are intended to help keep you on track by kind of being open only a certain time window period, and they're intended to keep you on track. Don't hesitate to ask me or the TAs for help. Again, you guys are really lucky. You got some of the best TAs, so so they will be able to help you out, and I'll be around to help you out during office hours as well. Okay, and the ultimate goal is your learning. Okay. This is kind of our plan. This week we're going to cover chapters 1, 2, and 3, which I've kind of given these short summaries. Descriptive statistics with pictures and numeric summaries and things like that. And then next week we'll do chapters 4 and 5. Week 3 is chapter 6 and the midterm exam. And then we'll cover chapters 7, 8, and 9. 8 and 9 are a little bit heavier, and so I've broken up into 2 parts each. And we'll kind of spend a lot of time in there in chapters 8 and 9, because those are kind of the details for the z-test and t-test and things like that. Here's a little picture I've drawn of kind of how these ideas work together. And so our first week, and I guess the first lecture of next week, is going to focus on descriptive statistics, where we're going to talk about describing data. We're taking our data and we're going to be describing it. And then we're going to jump into probability. And there's a whole lot of ideas of probability that kind of build on each other, okay? And probability can really just be summarized with this idea of how likely or unlikely events are, right? So we can say, you know, is something going to happen? Maybe, maybe not. Probability kind of gives us some rules about how likely or unlikely something is, and we build on that to get probability distributions, and then we'll build on that to get sampling distributions. And these might be terms that don't mean a whole lot to you right now, but sampling distributions effectively is related to probability, and it's going to be how likely or unlikely are we to get certain summary values, right? So in descriptive statistics, we'll learn like, this is how you find the mean. And then the sampling distribution will be like, what's the probability of getting this mean, okay? And that's going to pretty much take us to, I guess the midterm exam will get us through probability distributions. And then after that, we're going to tie those concepts together into statistical inference. And statistical inference is going to be kind of the focus of chapters 7, 8, and 9, okay? And that's going to be kind of our second half of our course, in that we're using our understanding of probability and summary values, and that's going to allow us to make conclusions about the population. So, so this is kind of where we are headed in our class here. Okay. And again, before I get into a ton of stuff, right? The class is fast-paced. We're going to cover a whole lot of stuff, okay? But I do want to just take a moment and say, you know, your health is far more important than your grades, right? And your health, I like to think of a few categories, you know, your physical health, okay? Your mental health, your spiritual health, emotional health, all of those things contribute to your health. And those things are going to be far more important to your grades. And so please take care of yourself, right? Physical health, you know, get sleep, eat well, exercise, things like that. You know, your mental, spiritual, emotional health, interact with people, you know, invest in your relationships and friendships and things like that. And I'm fully aware that life is also going on. And so if you get sick or if you experience other issues, you know, let me know, okay? Let me know as soon as you think it's going to become an issue. Please, if something's going on, okay, don't take an exam and then tell me after the fact that you were facing problems, okay? Because I cannot, it's like against the rules to let a student take an exam and then take the exam again. I can't do that, right? It's better to be a no-show and then explain and say, hey, I didn't show up to the exam because of this reason, and then, you know, we'll work it out, and generally, you know, we'll try to schedule you for a makeup or something, you know, as long as you had a reasonable reason, right? You know, if you just said like, I don't know, I'm trying to think, like, I just didn't set my alarm and I slept through, you know, I'm gonna have a harder time accepting that. But, you know, you got something's going on. I try to be reasonable, okay, and try to be accommodating. And so if something's going on and you feel like you can't do well on the midterm or do well on the final, please don't take the exam at that time. Let me know something's going on, and we can try to schedule you for a makeup or things like that. You need an extension for your homework, or not the homework, the lab assignments. Let me know, okay? And there's kind of already a system in place where you submit some documentation to get extensions for your lab assignments, okay? So I see, you know, my goal is to teach you and to support you. And so, you know, I want to be kind of accommodating in that regard. But again, you know, you put me in a very difficult position if you take the exam and then you email me afterwards and say, you know, I took the exam, but I did poorly because this and this was going on in my life. I can't, you know, I can't let you take the exam again. That's that's something I can't do. But if you say, hey, can you let me take the exam on another day because this is going on in my life, I'll work with you there. Okay. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Okay. All right, so let's get into chapter 1, and let's look at some of the stuff. We'll look at the nature of data, samples and populations, variables, observational studies, and experiments. These are kind of the topics of the day. This is basically chapter 1, and then on Wednesday we'll cover chapters 2 and 3, and that will cover. We're already hitting up quite a bit of stuff, right? All right, so a few slides ago, I said big idea number 1. This is the most most important slide. So we can make conclusions from observed data, and we talked a little bit about this, right? And so, you know, this subject of statistics, it's all about taking data, making conclusions from it. And I would say right now we are living in the golden age of data. We are generating data at unprecedented rates, right? I imagine all of you have a phone Okay, the fact that you have a phone means you are generating data, and you're probably being tracked, and all of your activity, maybe it's anonymized, maybe it's not. You know, we're probably living at the same time as the golden age of data, a dark age of privacy. And I think, well, I hope, well, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I hope, you know, things will look back and say, oh yeah, you know, we did not quite do things right regarding the privacy, right? It'll be kind of like looking at back at the Renaissance, and we say, oh yeah, lots of progress in art and stuff, but you know, medical stuff, that was not so great. Okay, but and I think we'll say, you know, lots of progress as far as analyzing data in this section, this time period. But then we'll say, oh, handling the privacy of data, that was a bit of a problem. But anyway, I hope we figured that out. Companies in every sector, whatever sector you can think of, tech, finance, health, government, entertainment, you know, whatever thing you're thinking about, is they are spending lots of money to get data. Okay, they want that data. They want to be able to look at that, right? Every field of science and research involves gathering and analyzing data. Data is important. Data is seen as a resource, just as important as like steel is for manufacturing cars and things like that. Data is just as important of a resource for making decisions, right? And why is data so important is because we can make conclusions based on the data. And the decisions that we make based on the data, okay, and sometimes we call this evidence-based practice or whatever it might be. When we make decisions based on the data, they are more reliable than decisions based on gut feelings, tradition, intuition, things of that nature, right? You know, you go on the internet, you go on YouTube, and you get these advertisements, right? And advertisements are always kind of annoying, and a lot of times we think we're above ads and that ads don't influence us. But so much money is spent on ads. Why? Because the data show that ads influence people's decisions, right? You know, political ads are run because it is shown that political ads influence how people vote. Ads for products and things like that are it's shown, the data shows that these things are effective. You want to sell a product, you got to advertise it and things like that. And you know, our gut feeling might be like, oh, I'm not influenced by ads. Like, why do they bother showing Coke ads at the Super Bowl? Like, I'm not going to drink Coke, or I'm going to drink Coke, or things like that. No, it turns out that, you know, running ads does stuff for making money, all right? And so, you know, pretty much businesses, they all want to make more money. And so they want to make decisions based on data, you know, in medicine and in health and things like that. There's kind of like the old traditional methods and conventional wisdom. But a lot of these things are either supported or challenged by the data. And it's shown that, that the data is more reliable. We can make conclusions more reliably from data rather than just kind of our gut instinct and stuff. All right, and the second big idea that we'll talk about, this is an exciting lecture because we're mentioning two big ideas here, is that we're making conclusions about populations, right? So you know, the conclusions that we make from our data are going to be about large populations that we cannot directly observe, right? So anytime you perform research, there's going to be some kind of question that we want to answer, right? So some examples are like, is experimental drug ABC effective at treating disease XYZ, right? So I purposely just used generic terms here, but you know, I mean, there is a question, right? Is hydroxychloroquine effective at, you know, the antiviral drug? Is that effective at kind of treating COVID-19? That was that's a significant question. You know, what medicines are effective at treating or preventing COVID-19? That's an important question, an urgent question, right? And we don't want to go off of just gut feeling here, but we want to look at data, right? If we other questions, you know, if you're in marketing, you might say like, hey, can we increase the cost of a product by this percent, 5%? And how many people will still buy it, right? Can they, you know, you pay, I don't know, however much a month for your Spotify subscription. And I'm telling you, Spotify, the CEOs or the people, they want to charge as much as possible and still maintain people subscribing. And they're constantly doing research by saying like, hey, if we bumped the subscription cost by this much, are a whole bunch of people going to drop? Are they going to keep it, right? Netflix, can we increase the cost of a subscription by this much, and will people still keep it? You know, these are questions that, you know, could change the amount of revenue a company takes in, right? So that was the deal. You know, back in, when was it? 2005, 2006? I don't remember. Maybe 2008. Okay. You know, Netflix used to, they used to mail out DVDs. Okay, you would get DVDs in the mail, and then the streaming service Netflix was, you know, barely existed, right? And then they started building up their streaming service, and then they decided to split their DVD mailing service and their streaming service, and then they decided to split the thing and charge separately for these products, and it like backfired big time on Netflix, and a whole bunch of people canceled their subscriptions. I was actually one of the people that canceled my Netflix subscriptions at the time, because it effectively was like a cost increase of like 60%, and people couldn't stomach that. But then, so anyway, it might have been prevented with a little bit more data, but maybe not. That was a risk that they took, and yeah, effectively it worked out for them. But it could have also gone there differently. Okay. Other questions, you know, what percentage of voters have a favorable opinion of some politician, John Q. Public or whatever? Okay. In all of these questions, there's a population, okay, an associated population. And the population is everyone who's relevant to answering the question. So as far as the experimental drug, okay, the population is everyone with disease XYZ, right? And that's a population that we don't even know everybody who has disease XYZ, right? That's part of the problem with COVID-19 is there's a bunch of people who are asymptomatic, and we don't even know who has the disease or not, okay? If we're talking about the cost of a product, okay, the population is all potential customers of the product, okay? So maybe that's everybody, maybe that's only people within a certain country, maybe that's, you know, we have to think about who our potential customers are, and that's going to form the population. If you're talking about proportion of voters with a favorable opinion, it's going to be the population is going to be all the voters who might vote for or against the politician. That's the kind of the population of interest, right? So, you know, if you're talking about a senator from a certain state, you know, it doesn't really matter if if people from other states have an unfavorable opinion of that politician, because the only ones who really matter in that case are the people, the residents of that state, because those are the only people who can vote for that politician and things like that. So we have to think about who's the relevant population. But in any of these cases, the idea is that the population is too big or too impractical to observe and study directly. There's either too many people for us to kind of survey everyone, or we can't track everyone down because we don't know who has the disease. We cannot observe the population directly. And so in statistics, what we do is we select a sample, right? So instead of trying to study the population directly, what we do is that we select a sample. And so sample is a selection of people or subjects. If you're not dealing with people, but you're dealing with, I don't know, animals or something like that, those are subjects taken from the population. Ideally, ideally the sample that you've selected and you're going to study is representative of the population, right? Because what we want to do is we want to look at kind of a small subset, and we want to say, hey, this thing looks like the general population, okay? And so when you take your sample and you record information from your sample, this is going to form what we call our observed data. This is, we're looking not at the population, not at everyone, but just a small selection. This is our observed data, okay? Based on the data from our sample, we make conclusions about the population. All right, so the example is, let's say we are interested to see if some experimental drug is that more effective at treating disease XYZ than maybe the current conventional treatment, okay? And so the population would be everyone that has the disease, everyone with disease XYZ, okay? And there's no way for us to track down everyone with this disease, right? Whether the disease is, you know, some kind of cold, maybe it's cancer, whatever it might be, we don't know who has it or who doesn't have it, okay? We cannot study the population directly, okay? But instead we get a sample, right? So we say, hey, these people we know have disease XYZ, and they are volunteering to be part of our study. And we're hoping that our sample of volunteers is representative or is at least similar to the general population, okay? And so what we do is we gather data from the sample, and maybe in our sample of data, the people who take the experimental drug recover at a higher rate than those who did not take the experimental drug. Okay, yeah, I do post these notes. Yes, of course, I will post these notes. All right, and so so maybe in our sample, the people who took the drug recovered at a higher rate than those who didn't take the drug. And so now the question is, does that mean if we give this drug to the general population, are people who take the drug, are they going to recover at a higher rate in the general population than those who didn't take the drug? Right? That's kind of the question that we want to know. We're not just interested in what happened to our sample, we're interested in what's going to happen in the population. If I give this same experimental drug to the population, is this going to be effective? Okay, and we want to know, is this, we want to explore the possibility that the results in our data is also, maybe it's just a fluke. Maybe it's just a fluke, right? So, for example, with COVID-19, there's a question, you know, is hydroxychloroquine effective at kind of preventing or helping people recover from COVID-19? And there was a small study that was performed, and in that small study, it seemed like providing hydroxychloroquine helped these people recover, okay? And so more studies were being done. And as more studies were being done, you know, the same results could not be replicated, and it seemed that, you know, hydroxychloroquine did not seem to be effective at treating COVID-19 for these larger studies. And so it, you know, with that initial study where it looked like there was that it was effective at treating it, could have just been a result of a random fluke, right? Maybe some people were going to recover from COVID-19 anyway, and just by kind of randomness, the people who got hydroxychloroquine just happened to be people who were going to recover from COVID-19 anyway, right? So these are kind of the questions that we're going to explore. We've got to learn probability and understand randomness, the nature of randomness, to kind of distinguish between what's random and what's actually happening. All right, and so these are kind of the ideas that we're going for. So we talked about selecting a sample from the population, okay? That process of selecting a sample from the population, that's known as sampling, okay? It's no big surprise there. And again, we said ideally that that the samples we select are representative of the population, right? Okay, let's see. Lab assignments strictly happen during discussion, correct? Yes, so I will not cover the instructions for the lab assignments. That happens during discussion. The instructions for the lab will happen during discussion. but you know, you're of course you're going to have to work on the lab after discussion. You know, it's a little bit like homework. You got to work on it on your own time as well. But your TAs will walk you through a large portion of it to kind of make sure you're comfortable and working through it. Okay, so the samples we select ideally are representative of the population. Okay, a sample that is not representative is said to be biased. Okay, and you know, biased, you know, is a bit of a charged word. There's a strong negative connotation, kind of indicating like our personal like prejudices and things like that. But you know, as far as statistics go, biased just means you either have too many of a certain group or too few of another group or things like that. Okay, so you know, if you're selecting a random sample, okay, if you select, you know, too many from a particular racial group, or if you select too few from a particular racial group, then your sample is biased, and it's probably not going to be as useful to make conclusions from a biased sample, right? That's going to give you a different interpretation of the data. So, you know, in the general population, you know, it's about, you know, approximately 50, not quite, okay. You know, male, female, you know, there's, you know, non-binary people and things like that. So maybe, you know, 49, 2% or something, right? And so, you know, when you take a random sample of people, okay, if by randomness you happen to select, just by randomness, maybe you select like 60% male, okay, then your sample is going to be biased. And if you ask questions, you know, what are your opinions on certain things, you might get results that don't necessarily reflect the general population, right? And so, so that's something to keep in mind. So ideally, you get samples that are representative of the population, okay? So one method that should, okay, not guaranteed, but should produce representative samples is simple random sampling. And again, it's not guaranteed because it is random, but in overall, simple random sampling should produce random samples. And so the way it works is that simple random sampling begins with a sampling frame. And a sampling frame is going to be a list of everyone, all individuals in the population, okay? And this part is actually very, very difficult to achieve in real life, okay? Getting a list of all individuals, everybody in the population, really hard to do, and is generally the source of a lot of bias. So, you know, I live in Los Angeles, UCLA is in Los Angeles, and we just said, if we said, hey, let's get the sampling frame of Angelinos, people who live in Los Angeles, okay? This would be, you know, I don't know what the population of Los Angeles is, several million, like 3.5 million or something like that. Okay, we would need a list of everybody. But how do we get such a list? It's like almost impossible to track down because there's a lot of people who are undocumented. There's a lot of people who don't have permanent addresses. There's a lot of people who are intentionally living off the grid or unintentionally living off the grid. There's no agency that has a list of everyone. So it's very difficult to get an accurate sampling frame, right? There's people who you might say like, okay, well, let's go to the DMV and see who's got a driver's license. But a lot of people don't have driver's license, right? And a lot of people, your driver's licenses aren't updated, okay? So, you know, especially if you like come from another state and you're living in Los Angeles to attend UCLA or something, right? So this is back when you were living on campus. I doubt any of you had your driver's licenses updated to say that this is my current address, right? And so the Department of Motor Vehicles don't have any idea that you live in LA, things like that. It's really hard to pull this off, okay? You know, if you say, well, let's get a list of all permanent addresses, you know, people who don't have a permanent address will not be included, okay? But anyway, once you have a sampling frame, right? So getting the sampling frame is actually really hard to do. There's you can take an entire course called sampling, applied sampling, on how do you get such a sampling frame. But once you have one, then the process of simple random sampling is simple. It's just you select individuals one at a time at random from the sampling frame. And if you do it like that, then that means every individual has an equal chance of being selected, and every possible sample has an equal chance of being selected, okay? So a very simple example is like lotto numbers, okay? They got like these ping pong balls bouncing around in a tub. The numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay? Each of those numbers have an equal chance of being selected, and that selection, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is just as equally likely as getting this exact combination of 9, 12, 23, 31, 47, 52. It's a little mind-blowing, but both of these things have the exact same probability of happening, because to get this exact combination or this exact combination, those are equally likely. It's that's the nature of simple random sampling, and we would use this in general. You should get samples that are representative of the population, okay? Once you have your sample selected, then we record information about the selected individuals. Each piece of information we record, that's called a variable, okay? And they're called variables because they vary. The values vary from person to person. And so generally, we'll have 2 types of variables. You can further divide these into more, but we'll just stick with these 2 types. We got numeric variables and categorical variables. Numeric variables sometimes are called quantitative variables. They describe a quantity, okay? How much or how many. Often these come with units. So anytime you're using units like how many inches, how many pounds, how many centimeters, how many liters, and things like that, that's going to be a numeric variable, okay? Categorical variables, on the other hand, they're going to tell us what type or what kind. Okay, so here, what we do is when we gather our data, we're often going to organize it into tables, okay? And when we organize them into tables, what we do is each observation is a row in the table, okay? And so each row contains only one observation, and in our sample size, we designate n. So n is how many observations we have, the sample size, the number of observations, or the number of rows in the table, not including the header row, okay? That's gonna be your n, okay? And each variable that we've done is gonna be a column in the table, okay? And so each column contains only one variable, so here our variables are name, age, gender, height, hair color, area code, and things like that. So looking at this, which variables are numeric and which ones are categorical, okay? All right, so quick question. You can answer, do you think, is area code numeric? Okay, you can either indicate on your answer in your participants window, say yes or no to the question, is area code numeric? What do you guys think? Okay, or you guys are chatting. Yeah, okay, all right, okay, well, so a lot of you, thank you guys for participating there. All right, yeah, and so, oh, what happened here? Okay, something weird happened with the headings, but area code is categorical, okay? Area code is categorical because it doesn't describe a quantity, right? It looks like numbers, 310, 562, 310, 562, but they are, but it's, I gotta fix this, okay. It doesn't describe a quantity, right? And you can think about this and you can ask, you know, can I compare these numbers, 562 versus 310? And the answer is it doesn't make sense, right? You cannot say Alice or Brett has more area code than Alice, okay? That doesn't make sense. You can't just say 562 is a bigger number than 310, so you can't say Brett has more area code than Alice, okay? On the other hand, the other things that are numeric, such as age or height, okay? I don't know what's going on with the alignment of these headings here, okay? You can say Alice is older than Brett, okay? Is 1 more year of age than Brett. Or Alice has a lower height than Brett, is 9 inches shorter than Brett. Those comparisons make sense, okay? Comparing 310 to 562, as far as numbers go, does not make sense, okay? The other ones, categorical, height, male or female, categorical, you know, male, female, other, non-binary, something like that. Hair color, brown, black, whatever, blonde, whatever hair colors we're talking about, those are categorical. And those, I think those are easy to see that they are categorical. Okay. So, you know, just because you've got a number doesn't necessarily mean it's numeric, okay? Most of the time when we're talking about a categorical variable, we record it with the a description of the category. So hair color, we might say brown, black, blonde, red, or other, okay? But sometimes when you record them in a table, maybe you might record them with numbers. So you might arbitrarily say brown gets recorded with a 1, black gets recorded with a 2, blonde gets recorded with a 3, et cetera, et cetera. But when you do this, it's important to remember that these numbers represent categories and do not have numeric meaning, okay? So you can't say somebody has hair category 3 and that they have more than person with hair category 1, okay? Once you kind of convert the categories into numbers, that doesn't suddenly make them numbers, that just, they're just representations of the category. Okay, so that's important to remember. Okay, on the other hand, you can also take age, a numeric variable, and you can turn them into a categorical one. Okay, so for example, you can take the age and you can make categories such as minor, which will be values from 0 to 17, and adult, 18 plus, right? Maybe you can take the height variable and you can say short, medium, or average, and tall, okay? And you just have arbitrary cutoffs, right? So you say short people, I don't know, under this number of inches, you know, average height between this and this height, and then tall people will be people with heights over a certain measurement, right? So you can take a numeric thing and make it categorical, right? And this happens, you know, with advertising, or like, you know, when they call, you know, they've basically, so you have like generations, right? You've got boomers and Gen X and millennials and Gen Z and things like that. Basically, they're taking age and they're turning it into a category. They're saying, if your age is, I don't know what it is, you know, 60 plus or 55 plus, then you are a boomer, right? And if you're between 40 and 55, you're Gen X. If you're between, I don't know, 25 and 40, you're a millennial. If you're under 25, you're Gen Z or things like that. Yeah, these are, I'm kind of making up those numbers, but basically they've turned age and turned it into a category, and things like that, right? So you can take numeric variables and make them categorical. All right, let's talk about gathering data, okay? And we can gather data from a few different sources. There's anecdotes, observational studies, and controlled experiments, right? So anecdotal evidence, anecdotes are basically stories about someone's experience, right? And so these include, you know, stories like, you know, my aunt was sick, and then she bought these essential oils, and when she took them or used them, like, it made her sickness go away, right? That's a true story, okay? And the question is, does that mean the essential oils were the reason why she got better, or was it something else? Who knows, right? But that story could be completely valid, that this sequence of events did happen, okay? But the question is, you know, does that mean this thing caused this thing, right? That's what we want to know. Other things, customer reviews, testimonials, those all fall under anecdotal evidence, okay? Anecdotes, they are useful, okay? Amazon reviews, every single review on Amazon is an anecdote. Somebody bought the product, they used it, and this is what happened, and they're sharing their experience, right? I guess in some cases with Amazon, some people don't even buy the product, and they write reviews because they were paid to do it, or, you know, not supposed to do that, right? Yelp, same things, right? I went to the restaurant, the waiter didn't bring me my water, 1 star, right? Or I went on, I rode Uber, the guy kept talking, 1 star, okay? These are things that happen. You know, even eyewitness testimony, they're useful, okay? Okay, but as far as statistical methods go, we don't have ways to deal with anecdotal evidence, right? Individual experiences vary greatly, and we can't use them to make conclusions about the general population. Just because it happened to one person doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen to other people. And in our line of thinking, we might say like, hey, I did this and then this thing happened. So as humans, we're often tempted to draw a cause and effect relationship. You know, I wore my lucky red t-shirt and good things happened. Therefore, I want to keep wearing this red t-shirt, right? You know, something happened and then something bad happened, and we draw associations that don't necessarily exist, but we want to say like this thing was caused by this thing, right? And we can't do that, right? So you know, remember, big picture conclusion. We can make conclusions from data. We're not going to count anecdotal evidence, right? So basically, at the end of the course, I want you to say, like, we can trust observational studies and controlled experiments, but as far as drawing conclusions, we're not going to be drawing conclusions from anecdotes. Okay, they're still useful. Before I buy a product, I go on Amazon and I read the reviews, right? And I say, oh, this person had a bad experience. That may or may not happen to me, but I don't want that bad experience. So I might not buy the product, okay? All right, observational studies. In an observational study, we observe our subject, okay? And ideally, the sample that we're observing is representative of the population. We talked about that already. We generally don't interfere with the subjects other than taking the measurements. And here's kind of the key. A subject's own actions determine whether they are in the treatment or control group. All right, so for example, if you're doing a study on smoking and lung disease, okay, the person chooses whether to smoke or not, okay? And you'll have 2 groups, smokers and non-smokers, okay? The subject's own actions determine whether they are in the treatment group, meaning the people who smoke, versus the control group, the non-smokers, okay? At the end of an observational study, you can only find an association. You might be able to find an association between 2 variables, okay? But you cannot conclude that one variable causes another variable, that changes in one variable will cause another variable. So with something like the smoking and lung disease, because it was observational, you cannot say that smoking causes lung disease if you only looked at it that way, all right? Because it's observational, right? So here's an observation, a silly example: reading performance at school versus number of electronic devices at home, all right? So a real study might look at a whole bunch of households and record all sorts of information. And, you know, some households will have children going to school, and the data will reflect this. They will find that houses with more electronic devices, so like more iPads, more cell phones, more TVs, and whatever devices you have, overall, houses with lots of these things will have students who will have better reading performance at school, right? So does that mean these devices are causing the students to perform better at school? The answer is no, right? The answer is no, right? And what's going on is reading performance at school is associated with, is caused by a lot of other things. And we might say there's another variable, such as income, okay, that can, or a socioeconomic status, that can explain the association. But even that of itself, like we've kind of accepted, for better or worse, we just say, oh yeah, if you've got more money, your kids are going to do better in school. That's kind of a terrible thing that we've accepted as a society. It's the data does reflect this, but that in of itself doesn't explain it, right? It's not that the income directly makes reading performance better at school, but income grants privileges and access to resources and materials, extra time, right? If the family has high income, generally that means, you know, the parent can spend more time encouraging their child to study, or things like that, right? There's all sorts of different things that that income accesses, but it's not that income in of itself suddenly makes people better readers at school, but it's that is, you know, the data does reflect this kind of association, and so it's kind of complicated. But anyway, that's all we can do from an observational study, right? On the other hand, we have controlled experiments, and this is our last slide, and I want to be mindful of our time, ending at 12:50. On the other hand, we can, oh, something happened here. This should be a bulleted list, but it's not. And in a controlled experiment, the subjects are assigned to be in the treatment group or the control group, okay? And so, you know, versus the observational study where the subject's own actions determine whether they're in the treatment or control group, in a controlled experiment, the subjects are told, you are in this group or you are in this group, okay? Ideally, the sample size is big enough to kind of observe a range of outcomes, all right? And researchers use random assignment to put the participants in treatment or control. So, oh yeah, oh yes, thank you for answer to quiz question number 3. Thank you for that reminder. Answer to quiz question number 3 is C as in cat. C as in cat. Okay, that's gonna be quiz question 3. Okay. Participants are blind to whether they are in the treatment or control group, right? So, and people making evaluations, meaning that we don't want the participant to know whether they are receiving the experimental drug or whether they are receiving a placebo, okay? So placebo is a tool used to kind of assist in keeping participants from knowing whether they are in the treatment or the control group. So just kind of keeping everything, we want to make conditions as uniform as possible across both groups. And therefore, at the end of the study, you know, pretty much if all the other conditions are kept the same, and we find that the group that was assigned to treatment and the group that was assigned to control have different outcomes, right? This one comes up high and this one comes down low. We can say that the difference in outcomes is because of the group that they were assigned to. And we can make a cause and effect conclusion, okay? And that we can only make cause and effect conclusions from controlled experiments. And it's a lot harder to do with observational studies. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's a lot harder to do. So so generally, I guess we will just say observational studies, we can only make association conclusions about association. Controlled experiments, we can make conclusions about cause and effect there. Okay, that's it for today's lecture. This is kind of our intro to the subject. It's a little bit deceptive because we had no numbers and no math involved. Next week, or on Wednesday, we will start immediately getting into the numbers. But this is just kind of an overview of the ideas. I'm looking forward to a good quarter with you guys. So we will end here for today. Is there homework? Yes, there is homework. I will post that homework up on CCLE. So take a look at that. So I'm going to update CCLE with a few resources in the next hour or so. along, including the homework and a practice Gradescope quiz, which I will make for extra credit, and we will go from there. Okay, so we will see you guys on Wednesday, and that's it. All right. Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll see you then. Have a good day, and enjoy your section with your TAs. I know you'll love them. So we'll see you guys. Oh, thanks everybody for the thank you notes there. Okay. We'll stop the recording.